So out of my stock, I have selected the wood I'm going to use for the doors. This is 1x12 barn siding. You want to make sure that it's flat. Sometimes this 1x can get a little bit of a cup to it. So you want to make sure you're flat. You're going to have trouble. You have to shim your doors and stuff. So this is what I'm going to use. So anyway, it'll all, there's color variances, but that's okay. It'll all kind of come together when you build it. So let's start building some cabinets. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to rip these a little bit oversized on the width. So when I get them all ripped and squared up, you know, I've got room to do the final cut on them. With this old wood, it's so expensive if you have to buy it. And I mean, it's, you know, it's 140 years old or something, so maybe 150. So I'll always cut a little over and then just keep cutting back a scotch, like the trim on those cabinets, because if you undercut it, there's no turning back. So I overcoat. If it measures, say it measures, you know, 8.5 inches. I'll cut it, you know, 8 5/8 or maybe 8 3/4, and then go check it, and then just start doing little cuts back until it cuts to fit, just to make sure that I do not cut them too short, because there's no turning back. Then you got to go get another piece. So anyway, on these doors, the final cut I think is, each one will be 9.5 inches wide, and I'm going to cut each one of them 10 inches. And then I'll do the final cut after that. So now what I'm going to do is just do a very light sanding on these with 60 grit. I want to just kind of knock the really rough by doing just a light sanding on here, they're still rough. I mean, you run your hand over them, they're rough, but not quite as rough as they were. And see where the wood underneath is exposed a little bit? That'll really add a very nice contrast when I put the polyurethane on it. So now, the reason I did this sanding first was now I have to run them through the planer, because the back side will be, you know, when you open your doors, I don't want this rough showing. But by sanding it first, it'll be a smoother surface. It'll run through the planer better. So these have all been run through. Here's the side that'll show. Here's the back side. Look at that. This is why I love this old wood. Look at that gorgeous grain right there. So I ran them all through the same. Even though some of them might have planed off a little bit quicker than the other ones, I just kept running them through till they were all planed off. That way they're exactly the same thickness. That's very important. Look at that wood grain right there. Isn't that gorgeous stuff right there? So now I'll get this out of the way and we'll work on the rails and the stiles. Getting the stiles and the rails cut out. It's out of this wood. This is this was 3-inch tongue and groove off of an old shed on a barn site. I have already routed that edge. I just went through a whole stock of it and routed it just to be done with it. So that edge is already routed. So the routed edge will go to the outside, and then we'll put the stiles and rails on here, and of course they'll be cut 45. I have already sanded this surface with 60 grit sandpaper, just like I did the surface of these doors. And so we'll go ahead and cut those and get them to fit. So now I'm going to go through every door panel and fit the stiles and rails. The stiles are, you know, the vertical pieces, the rails are the horizontal pieces. So I'll make sure everything fits in case I have to do some trimming or something or redo. So I'll go through every door panel like this before I move on to the next stage. So all I'm going to do right now is just paint these fronts with this crystal clear water-based semi-gloss polyurethane. If I use oil base, it won't look good at all. So take a look at that. There's the one of the panels that's just the plain with, and I haven't done anything to it. And then I'll coat this on here and we'll let that dry. And then I'll show you what this same panel looks like with this polyurethane on it. And it just makes it jump. It looks rich. So that's what I'll do here with the rails, the stiles, these panels. After I put this crystal clear oil-based semi-gloss polyurethane on it. This is what it looks like now. Let's see. You can kind of see the edge here where it's unfinished and finished, and there's still a little bit of white in there because it's not completely cured out, but you can see the difference. Look at the unfinished and the finished. It really brings out the tones in that wood. I'm just finishing the back side of these doors, but I wanted to show you. See these knots right here? Look what happens. Watch this wood transform into something else when I put this polyurethane on there. Look at that. It really makes it pop. So here again, I just wanted to show you the difference between the raw planed off wood and this oil-based semi-gloss polyurethane. Look what it does, like to those knots. Look at the tones that come out of there. I mean, this stuff's crazy. With just one coat. What I'm going to do now is get these stiles and rails on these cabinet doors, and so I'll just get everything to fit, get the corners as good as I can get them. You know, it's very hard to just get perfect corners, because this wood, just like one of the other doors, it had a knot. Well, the knot was just slightly raised. So then, you know, these boards, you have to clamp them down to actually bend them a little bit to get them to fit. So what you can do with this old wood is you can get the corners pretty darn good. You're not going to get them as tight as you would with new wood, where you can just get them crisp and clean tight. You can't do that with this old wood, but you can get them where they look pretty darn good. So that's what I'm going to do now, and then I'll shoot 1-inch 18 gauge brad nails in each corner, polyurethane that edge, and then we'll move on. So here's your finished door, other than that, you know, finishing that edge with polyurethane. So the doors will be like this. They'll be side by side, and then when they're open, that's what they'll look like on the back side. And so anyway, okay, well, the stiles and rails are on these doors. It's time to attach door handles. That's what this blue tape is. I've marked where I want that door handle. So those handles, the bottom of the handle will be 6 inches up from the bottom of the door, and then I'll use this Craig jig, and it works pretty darn good for this. It works perfect, matter of fact. I love this thing. But what I've done is I've marked, there's a center mark on this jig, and that's what that mark is. I put a center mark on there so that I can get this thing lined up and get it dead center. I've already adjusted these holes for my door handle, so just clamp it on there so it doesn't move, and drill a couple of holes. So I'm going to have to use 1.5 inch screws to go through here. And voila! You have perfect holes. You know, with this jig, these adjustments here, you know, I've made those adjustments so that my handles fall dead center on my stiles, and then you can adjust these. So this is fully adjustable for whatever type of door handle you're going to use. And it's a lifesaver, let me tell you. Game saver, lifesaver, time saver, everything saver. So now it's time to put the hinges on. I selected these hinges. They're more old school. That's what I wanted for this reclaimed wood, and they're self-closing hinges. But so I'm going to hold them up 3 inches on each end, and then I just put that hinge on there. And I use, this is a Stabilo pencil. You can use whatever you want. I use this pencil because the lines wipe off easy. So I just simply trace around it where I want it on each end. I've already got my router bit set to the depth. That's going to be your depth, and I've already got the router bit set, and I experimented on a piece of wood, you know, to get it exact. So now I'll just router out that design so that hinge will set in there. We'll be good to go. back at the cabinets, I'm going to put these doors on. And what I did here is this board is just tacked on in two places with a couple 1-inch nails. And that, you know, there's so many nails in these boards anyway, it doesn't matter. And if they're a problem, I'll just plug them. But anyway, I'll put these doors up. This is level, so all I have to do is set it on there, and I know I'm level. And put 4 screws in, and we'll move on to the other. So here's the doors. They're all done. You know, like over in here and well, all over, you know, you're kind of working in the shadow. So a headlamp is a pretty good item to have. I use one all the time. Also, those little bitty screws, you can't hardly get a hold of them with your fingers, so a pair of needle nose pliers works good to hold them. So anyway, this is what they look like finished. Got a good old knot hole in there. You know, everything matches. They're tight. They're put together tight here because in the house when they draw back they're gonna leave about 1/8 of an inch gap. So here's the other side. These doors are you know, same thing, just all of them are different. All the character on them is different. The knot hole, it's all different, but it really looks nice. And here again, these are tight because they're going to pull back here over the next couple months, and then there'll be a gap in between a little bit. So anyway, there they are. Those are finished reclaimed Barnwood.